Alright, in this video of Rusted Nuts and Ratchets Garage, we'll be doing door skins on my MK3 Supra. As you can see, from 1989 till now, the door is definitely weathered, and I'm not really sure how I'm going to go about reupholstering this, but I think I'm going to wrap it in felt, fiberglass it, then maybe faux suede or paint. I'm not sure. Some of the things I'm concerned about will be finding a good trim piece for that window scraper, because I haven't been able to find one. If all else fails and it doesn't work, whatever I'm doing, I will resort to my set of shadow gray ones, or gray ones. I think it's shadow gray. Anyway. That explains why. So here's the thing about living in the country. As you can see, there's a mouse nest in my door handle, which explains why in the hot sun I would smell mouse piss. And they just absolutely love, come on, focus, to eat wiring. So I've had no sound coming out of this speaker for the whole summer, basically. That's great. Just to give you an idea, I've got the door skin off. So this is all pre-molded and whatnot at the factory about 1,000,000 years ago. And that is where the mice have been living, right in my door handle. So they do that. It's not fun. Before I get started, I do have some fiberglass resin that I used to do the body job on my wife's 1980s MR2, and I've got a solo cup here to mix it in. I'm not sure, I don't think it'll melt through that, but I'm not going to be using it for very long anyway, because I'm just going to fix that one spot. Basically, I follow the directions on the back of the resin container, mix it accordingly, and then I'm going to brush it into here so that it hardens and fixes that, or hopefully builds that back into a normal, like OEM from the inside. When you're doing this, you should always be wearing a mask and work in a well ventilated area, so that way you're not breathing in these potentially noxious fumes. And I'm just gonna brush it onto all the soft fiber, and hopefully that helps to reinforce it back to what it normally was way back when in 1980. 89, that is. Alright, so I'm stripping the door card for my MK3 Supra down. I've got down to the foam behind the vinyl or leather or whatever. There's a little glue on the backing, so I'm going to use a heat gun to heat this up and peel it off, basically, and then I'm going to fiberglass resin this door and do some body work on it, and then probably paint it with like a wrinkle paint or something like it, like a rubber rock guard or something, then paint it the color that I'd like it that matches my interior. So I'll get right to it and won't waste any time. Alright, so as you can see, I've already gotten to it a little bit. I've used the heat gun to get as much off as possible before I ran out of time and had to do something else. So we'll continue on, and it shouldn't take too long. Basically, I just find a place where, while you're heating it, the foam is going to change texture almost. I also have this panel sitting in the house in a nice warm room to kind of get the base heat already up. And I might try to do the other door without taking the vinyl cover off first, to see if I can get the foam and the vinyl off all in one pull. As you can see, the heat is making the glue lift. A good pair of gloves helps too. I used latex gloves, they were melting through. These are nitrile tipped finger gloves. Nitrile coated gloves, whatever. Sometimes the heat gun doesn't take off the glue on the back of the styrofoam very well. And all the spots that are not necessarily going to be seen, like through this middle piece, I'm going to use the wire wheel on my hammer drill here. I'm just going to be careful not to go too deep into the... So now that I got the door card cleaned up a bit, most of the foam's off. I'm just gonna take some, I think I got 80 grit sandpaper here, 100 grit, some coarse sandpaper to just clean it up a bit and get rid of anything that's gonna impede the fiberglass adhering to this panel, plus the extra foam that's around the corners. So as I probably said before, this part of the door is covered by the bottom little console cup holdery thing, or I don't even know what to call it. Pouch? Door pouch? I've got a little bit of damage right here that I'm going to have to fiberglass and fill. A little here, and a little at the back here as well. So this is just a rough sand, and then I'm going to warm this panel up, coat it in fiberglass, and work it out the right way. So that's pretty well it for now. Like I said, that spot right there will need to be fiberglassed and filled on its own. And I'm probably going to fill this little speaker port that probably does nothing for audio quality anyway. And then I'm going to fiberglass it and refinish it. So I'm about to lay some fiberglass resin on this. Got Bondo, there you go, Bondo fiberglass resin. I've read the directions, I'm mixing it. I have the panel pre-warmed. My garage isn't definitely not warm at all, but it'll just take longer to cure. And I do have a heater that I'm going to put on it. I've already drawn out where the inserts and whatnot are going to be so that I don't waste too much of the resin. So I'm only going to put a light layer on spots that are covered by, say, this little pouch thing that goes in the bottom of your door. I will be doing something different with this, still not sure what yet. And I've drawn out with the Sharpie where this is going to sit as well. So I tried to do it with the fleece before. It didn't quite work out for me the way I wanted it to. So I ripped all the fleece off. I had probably $60 worth of fiberglass resin into that door. Should probably be wearing a mask while I do this. I think I have one kicking around here. There we go. Yeah. So after 2 coats of fiberglass resin and letting it cure under infrared light that I use to keep my chickens warm in the spring, and with a little micro furnace on the workbench, it cured up pretty nicely. So I'm going to sand it all down and fix the imperfections with a little body filler, and then I'm going to put a coat of rubber rock guard on it, which should give it some sort of a texture and be durable for the seasons to come. Even right there where it was really soft is now pretty firm, because I did it, I put the fiberglass resin on the back and on the front. So I'm going to start to sand this down and do the body work, and then I'm going to paint it. So one thing to note when doing some body work of any kind is that you'd like your hands to be clean of grease, using like a dish detergent like Dawn or Sunlight, and proper respiratory protection like just a regular old dust mask, but I don't have any, so I'm going to go with my respirator here. Hopefully that's on the camera. It's a little overkill, but I mean, you only get one set of lungs, I think, for now. What I have here is just 100 grit sandpaper. I'd even go as coarse as 80 grit to start, to get it down to the rough, and then work my way up to about 400 grit. So already with the sanding, you can see that where the dust is lying will have to be built up with some filler. You can also use your hands as you're sanding to feel out the high and low spots. And that's pretty well it there. Alright, so I'm going to be doing a little bit of the body work to this door panel. So I'm going to be filling in this little speaker port hole, some low spots here where there's a hole from, I don't know, whatever the fabrication of the panel. The part where my handle was wore down and busted is now rigid with the fiberglass resin. And some other spots that might require a little bit, especially this broken part here and another broken part right there. So I'm going to fill those in so when I get home from work tonight I can do the body work. So what I have is a little bit of Bondo here. I do have a mask on, so that's why I sound a little funny, because you probably should be looking out for your health while doing this stuff. Just when mixing the Bondo, follow the directions. Usually it says like a golf ball size piece to a pea-sized bit of cream hardener. I put a little bit more in just so that I'm guaranteed that it's going to be hardened when I get home. It's always nice to keep some sort of thinner around, which I don't have today, to clean your putty knives up with. But these are just some dollar store ones, so if they get ruined, they get ruined. So I'll just turn the... I just got the putty on a clean piece of steel. Usually I use like a washer or dryer lid, but I can't find my actual putty mixing board. And I try not to mix up too much at one time. Not that it's really going to harden on you or anything, but just so you're not playing with a big old lump of body filler. And you don't want to put too much on, because the more you put on, the more you have to sand off. And this goes with many automotive body filling applications as well. This one I'm going to build up a little higher than I normally would, just because I feel like it's going to settle into that hole. Okay, so I've got the body job on this door done pretty well where I want it. I'm using a textured paint, so I'm not really worried about the sand scratches that much. It should turn out pretty good. Sorry, I sound a little weird. I got a mask around my neck here. So I have it tied up. Now, when you're doing your painting, you should probably do it in a clean, designated, like paint booth style area. But I got a bunch of projects on the go right now with some broken automobiles and whatnot. And I just kind of want to get this thing into primer. Probably will regret it, but it won't look that bad. And if I don't like it, I'll just do it again. So here we go. So I'm doing this with a sandable, wet or dry sandable, Rust-Oleum Painter's Touch gray primer. I don't have to use that first. I'm just doing that just in case I don't like everything I do and want to start it over again. So Start off with a light coat, you could say. The primer will help. The primer will help reveal any imperfections, stuff that you'll want to touch up with more body filler or better sanding. But I think for what's going to be visible when this car or when this door is done, it'll probably be all right, minus a couple of the fiberglass that I obviously didn't fill in good enough. The more time you take on it, the better the product will look in the end. So always keep that in mind when doing body work. Alright, so as you can see, I've got the door panel all done. Coated it in this rubber rock guard. It's not perfect, but it's actually pretty darn good. So I'm going to hit it with this navy blue. I've color matched it to my trim panel that I brought with me to the hardware store. Hopefully it's a match, because you know that the cap's the same as the contents. But we'll get to spraying this. It's nice and pretty warm in the garage because it's a nice day out, so I don't have to heat it. And I've had the panel under an infrared light to keep warm and to cure the rubber rock guard. It's pretty close. So put a fairly light coat on for the first coat. I'll let that dry, and then I will put the second coat on. So if I was going to go with a solid gloss finish, I would have done a lot more work on this body panel. But since I used the rubber rock guard, it's great if you want to be lazy. So I used this here rubber rock guard, and that helped to fill in any of the sand scratches. Plus it provides a solid base coat that is semi-flexible and can resist some damage. I'm just not sure how the paint's going to go on top, but so far I like the looks of the texture. And I'm going to finish this with a couple more coats of the paint and some satin non-yellowing clear coat, so it should come out pretty nice. I was originally going to paint this with Rust-Oleum, but I couldn't find a close enough match in cap color. Got the door all refinished now. What I'm working on is this here little insert, and in order to get this old leather off, you take it and pull all of the staples off all the way around. So I've got my faux suede laid out and my template. I have the grain of the suede going down from the lock, so I'm thinking this is the way you want the grain to go. I mean, technically it could be up to you, but I'm going to do mine so that the grain lays down towards the road as opposed to up or forward or backward, one or the other. I'm not a seamster or seamstress or any of those above, whatever, so but I do know one, and she said to use very sharp scissors when cutting fleece. And I'm gonna assume that's the same thing when doing faux suede or any type of material for that matter. So I'm not getting a very good video of this, but you get the point. I'm just cutting it out. I'm not sure if I'm going to just pull that tight or if I want to get a new piece of foam for behind the suede there, because it does have this little embed. So essentially that's what you're at. Then you're going to staple it onto the back side as tight as you can and cut out the holes and staple those down and then glue it. Or something. Goodness gracious. But I would like to retain that foam that I have there, so I think I'm going to put this on hold until tomorrow.